tell you about my day, and tell you about Tillamookkk, and tell you about the man-up strategy of manipulation. How much is the refill?
99 cents.
She's from here in Tillamookkk. She's pregnant and homeless. And regardless, whatever she may be in life, she's a human being. And she's nice to me. Or she ignores me entirely, which are two very good things. She is a witness to some of the situations here. A lot of the situations here, actually. Both in her own life and mine. Someone calling himself Kevin Johnson type. How's it going so far? It's going. That's about it. It's going. Web sleuths get on and they see these channels by Rob Gavigan and Mike Boudette and a lot of these other web sleuth things, and they think they know everything about the situation and want to assume my guilt just like everybody does. Or they just don't care. That's the biggest one right there. They don't care until it comes and bites them in the ass. They blow off what it really means to have people give out your phone number till you give out their phone number. It sucks. Kevin Johnson typed, at least you have some progress done. I've been watching a little bit every day. Well, I wouldn't call any of it progress because none of it comes to fruition. Counting eggs before they hatch and all that, you know? When it comes to predators like Chris Stafford, he's a violent felon who's got firearms, including Amanda's mother's firearm. He's also somebody who's targeted me the same way that Andrew Wolnez did. See, when you're a guy and you have problems, you can't tell anybody about your problems. You just have to take it. That's your job. That's your job. Well, there's a lot of people out here being abused of both genders. And before we go arguing about how many genders there are, there's 3. 4 technically if you consider that you can be born without male or female reproductive parts. But really, you're either born male, female, or hermaphrodite, and even a hermaphrodite is genetically either male or female. Just the way it is. For those who want to identify as something other than they are, let me tell you something about identification. If you identify as an anvil and someone drops a piano on your head, you will still splat. Physics doesn't give a fuck how you identify. Neither does biology. So, while I support your right to believe whatever the fuck you want to believe, and I absolutely 100% support your right to love whoever you want to love, so long as they are adult and consenting, We've gotten absurd with this woke bullshit. What we've done is we've taken the hard work of a lot of different people, and we've tried to give individual credit to individuals within very specific special rights communities. That's not okay. We got a guy on here wanting to type about tweaking. Nope. I'm a male in a state of crisis. I tend to ramble. That's what we do. I'm autistic. It increases it, intensifies it. We as males are born into a society that expects us to perform. And we do. We do our due diligence, do we not? Everything that we're told is wrong and improper today. We see men doing those things and getting away with it, and we see men who couldn't possibly even think about it, because if a woman even thinks that he might think of doing something like that, don't mac on her, don't hit on her. You should know your station in life, don't even say hello. Now, one of the peoples that we've ignored the most during all of this is white males. The idea that because you're white, you have a 2-car garage, live in a mansion, and made all the laws. That's absurdity. I'm in a KKK town, and I don't like it here, and they don't like me here. We don't get along. It's kind of like living in Chapel, Nebraska, another KKK town. In Chapel, Nebraska, for about 11 years, when people screamed my name out the window, it wasn't, "Hey, Sean." It was N-word lover. Because every time somebody there said the N-word, I'd say, "I don't like that word." Same thing I say here. Just because I fight for somebody's rights to be who they are doesn't mean that it's okay for them to bully me the way that people bullied them their whole lives. I fought hard so that my gay friends could have rights. I find it abhorrent and disgusting when my gay friends want to insinuate that I shouldn't have rights because I'm not gay. I've fought hard for veterans' rights, and I've had veterans throw it in my face. Say things like, "Well, if you weren't in the military, you shouldn't have the right to vote." We all contribute, do we not? A man tonight was telling me about the Sikhs, because he had heard something or read a pamphlet or something like that. So I told him about the Merthican. Spoke to him a little bit about Alexander the Great in the Indus Valley. He was surprised I was into history. Well, I'm into everything. I like being educated. Here's one thing that I see often. I see a bunch of people whose rights I fought for my whole life, having to dig up from the dregs, living with 2 cocaine addicts for parents, growing up in the system with minorities. I knew pretty much just minorities in the system. That was my life, until I moved to Nebraska at the age of 15. In Nebraska, they blame everything on blacks and Mexicans, and there ain't no blacks or Mexicans there to blame it on. It's absurdity. But people will blame whoever it's easiest to blame, and everybody wants to remain blameless. You won't be offensive to anybody in Chapel, Nebraska, if you blame it on people that ain't there. If you blame the drainage issue north of town, if you blame that on the Sodders, you're wrong. If you blame it on the Bruins family, you're right. But the Sodder family don't got a lot of money, and the Bruins family did. It don't matter whose fault it is, it matters who's popular. It matters who's got the numbers, who's got the reputation. It don't matter what the truth is, ever. And we get to see this. I fight against the KKK, absolutely, but I also fight against other terrorist organizations. That's what I gotta consider them. There's a lot of straight people that I know, and when they are mean to me, they want to pretend I'm a homosexual. When I go to my homosexual friends and tell them about what I'm going through, they always want to change it to their life must be worse because they're gay, and therefore I shouldn't complain. Same thing with my black friends. Also with my female friends. When I'm abused and I tell a female friend that I've been abused, many of them start telling me all sorts of statistics about how women are more abused. No, women are let go more often. A female sexual abuser in our schools who actually has sex with a student serves an average of 8 months. A male teacher in a similar position, caught watching porn on the computer, serve an average of 16 years. If he has sex with a student, we're talking about 40 years to life. When we talk about stalkers and stalking behaviors, women are 11 times more likely to commit stalking behaviors, to engage in stalking behaviors. And they're also a lot more likely, like 30 times more likely, to get other people involved and to play head games. To pull the poor me, I'm just a girl. We can't be having that. We can't have people getting away with doing such horrible things. Things so horrible that men are murdered over it or commit suicide over it. Someone calling themselves R-Wisted typed, "You got a point." Omega 562 typed, "Hi, how are you doing? Since last live I saw when you got stalked and harassed." Yeah. Shitty. Right now I'm depending on a guy who drinks all day. He's really nice. That's something I want to say about all the people at Safeway too. They're all really nice. Someone calling himself Pork Milk type, "The new concern is the Space Force." Yeah, well, I live in the real world. I live in Tillamookkk, Oregon. Whatever they want to do with that crap is fine. Just stop stealing from the American people to do it. Pork Milk type, "Every branch has its own intelligence agency." Then add on the NSA, CIA, FBI. Every state has agencies, and now the Space Force. Indeed. Somebody who's using, looks like Korean kanji. Oh, it is Korean. Was, waving apparently. Brian K type, "Gnarly snort." Yes, it is. I got Tourette syndrome. That's one of the things that I do. I try not to. I know it bugs people. Pork Milk type, "Yeah, tax on tax on tax. We can't afford this." You're right. There's also the stuff that we're spending the money on. What happens when a disabled homeless man goes to the police? He gets bullied, talked over, talked in circles, and then sent to mental health. I want you to imagine that if your daughter was raped, that rather than the police doing their jobs, they sent her to mental health. I want you to imagine that your son with Down syndrome was just assaulted, and when he goes to the cops, they want to send him to mental health. Let's say you're on vacation in one of those two scenarios, and they want to force you to establish residency and go to a bunch of therapy before you can turn in the crimes. It's insanity. This is what we have to go through as homeless men. Boulder, Colorado, there are 15 services for women for every one co-ed service. Write that down. Omega 562 type, you should not smoke because you can get cancer, and my mom does. I don't like it. Please don't. If you're under the age of 18, I highly recommend leaving my channel, first of all. Second of all, I'm going to smoke. I didn't start smoking because I thought it was healthy. I started smoking because Kimberly Jo Jepson, one of the cheerleaders in Chapel, Nebraska, wanted to talk to me after getting back together with the boyfriend that yanked her out of her vehicle by her hair. I didn't want to hear anything she had to say at that point. You're going to go back to an abusive person like that, someone who's physically assaulting you. I would rather just whatever it takes so she doesn't want to come talk to me. And she didn't like the smell of cigarettes, so I started smoking. You don't like the story, that's fine. Pork milk type First Amendment audits show how prevalent this abuse mentality is with law enforcement. You're absolutely right. And that's why the only protection that we have is having a friend or family member who goes in with us, who is informed and actually cares. Because the people who have tried going in with me, they don't care enough to find out what's going on. They just want to set up an appointment, and we go in and I get talked over. And the cops try selling a false narrative over the top of anything that I'm saying. They don't know well enough to speak up like they should. Like a friend or family member would. Like you would if it was your daughter. Like you would if it was your son. If you went to Florida because your grandma was staying at a nursing home and she went missing. Kind of like I came here to Oregon because somebody I knew, Rebecca Gross Nickel Foley, went missing. Same thing with David and Katie Saltzman and their children. They went missing. Now you go down there to Florida with your kids. One of the people there decides they're going to do things they shouldn't to your children. Now you might say and swear up and down that you're going to go shoot the SOB, but you didn't bring your firearm with you. You're on vacation. You didn't get all the permits it took to drive through all those states. So now you're there in Florida. Somebody done something to your kids and you're being forced to go to mental health because your kids were abused. You're forced to move there because your kids were abused. And while you're there, your abusers know that you're trying to turn them in, so them and their friends and family are making your life a living hell and your kids' lives live in hell. I try to make the scenario something you might understand. When people take their dear sweet time and they blow me off, one thing that I'm notorious for doing, say I get 1,000 restricted calls in a day and somebody has been telling me for 5 months they're going to help me. I'll type to them exactly how I feel over and over and over again. The word starts with K and it ends with me. I can't handle this, and people expect me to. Pork milk. Oh, I guess he's the last one to type on here in a little bit. If you guys could take some of the video links and send that stuff to every news agency that you can, send it to every government agency that you can, send it to Tina Kotek, the governor, hell, send it to the Secretary of State, I don't care, send it to someone. That's a blue Dodge pickup, one of the ones that's been screaming stuff at me, but so far as I know, they haven't thrown anything at me. They were just filming me. Raging Demon type below, sir. Pork milk type, one of my favorite sayings is endure. Enduring, grow strong. You have and can endure. I don't want to. I want my evidence to go to the FBI so those son of a bitches can sort through it. The son of a bitches that touch their own children ought to be the priority because they're the highest risk for reoffending, believe it or not. Enduring hell does not build character, as they say. You can see how the same questions for the last 7 years. Why don't you move? Look at how many times I've moved. Why don't you just move somewhere else? Look how many times I've moved somewhere else. I'm told, well, why don't you just talk to the person? Well, look what happens when I try to talk to the person. What are we supposed to do when us and one of our loved ones have an issue? We're supposed to tell them what happened and how it makes us feel. What does that result in? People saying, I don't want to hear it. It's your fault. You brought this on yourself. You chose this. You're mentally ill. You're mentally ill. You are mentally ill. Did I mention you're mentally ill? I'm sorry again about the disconnect. It's one of the issues about solar flares. I'm not sure who kept up to date on those. Some phones are more prone to the damage from it or the disruption. One of my phones works through it, the other one doesn't. The one that I have that hooks up to YouTube and hooks up to my Facebook does not have a decent connection worth of crap. So I guess I'll sit here for a bit because I'm not actually up to walking anyway. That's why I've been squatting down. When people take a look at the evidence, they realize I'm telling the truth. But it's a matter of getting them to actually look at it. Some of the evidence that I posted up on here, I posted literally dozens of times, hoping that somebody will take a look at it and realize what it actually means. Hoping that one of those people will go through the evidence, send me a friend's request on Facebook, go through the evidence, and show people in these groups the truth. Tag the evidence that it's bullshit to the videos themselves. Tag the conversations with the witnesses to the videos that are full of bullshit. And you can even tag where in that video that they're bullshitting. For me, trying to do this from my phone, when there's a lot of options I don't have from my phone, I have to be able to do this with a computer that I can't carry into the library every day. I carried it in today myself for the second day in a row, and I am paying for it. If you're here because you heard something about the Natalie Bollinger thing from A&E or from Sword and Scale or any other number of these true crime places, send me a message at doggedroman@gmail.com. And I will literally forward you a message that was sent to me by Natalie Bollinger in 2016. June 30th of 2016. It's about the abuse that she endured growing up. If you want to try to help out financially, doggedroman@gmail.com is the way to get a hold of me from emails. And I did finally sort of get Cash App up and running. I gotta wait for the actual card to come in before I can do the whole routing number crap and get that all worked out so people can actually pay me. But it's a work in progress. The not having a safe place to work on my evidence and being eaten up by the courts. I mean, I can't turn in a predator without having to deal with more assaults, more abuse, more of their friends or family coming out of the woodwork to be douchebags. Meanwhile, these people pretend like I'm some sort of a murderer, some sort of a rapist, as their excuse for doing these horrible things. And the worst predators out of all of them, law enforcement. Nobody cares about the homeless until they're homeless. And by then, of course, it's too late. Because nobody listens to the homeless. Not even the homeless. It's like going to an AA meeting. It's a bunch of people standing around complaining about how much they fucked up their own lives. And oh, poor them, they fucked up other people's lives along the way. Let me tell you something. When a homeless woman comes up to you and she says, hey, John came into my camp last night, drunk as a goddamn skunk, and raped me. Do you make the excuse of, oh, he was probably just drunk? Well, he was drunk. Does that make it okay to rape people? No, the fuck it doesn't. Do you say, oh, well, you know, back in 1982, let me tell you about what I had to go through. No, you don't do that. But that's what we end up with on the street here, because everybody out here got PTSD and trauma. The gateway drug is trauma. Trauma. The most dangerous and diluted people are the ones who think they're sane. To all those from the cookie mold, I will never be a moldy cookie. Normal is a box of preconceived notions. Everything else is the truth. Those were from a book I was writing called The Schwartzen Book of Braingasm. I was writing another book at the time about, well, growing up in the system with a lot of people with mental disorders. Then living on the streets as an adult with a lot of people who have mental disorders. So I wrote a book called How to Properly Identify Your Wingnuts. Yep. You know, with all the airheads in Boulder, you'd think it'd float away, but it can't, because there's a wingnut on every corner. Alright, so I just took a bit. What else to do? Now, of course, do I think prayer does any good whatsoever? No, I don't. But maybe some of you are the kind of showy Christian type folks that when you pray, you're going to do it publicly, you're going to do it out loud to make a big show for everybody. So everybody sees you praying. So everybody sees that you're one of them Jesus people. And maybe one of those people will see Amanda's name in there. Maybe they'll think to themselves, hey, I know an Amanda in Portland who's pregnant. Maybe I could do something to help her out. Maybe I'd go out there with a blanket. Maybe I can check on her from time to time. Make her feel like she's not so alone in the world. Maybe if she got a problem, I can sit down and listen to it. Maybe instead of telling her that she should walk 30 blocks across town, maybe you could take the time to, I don't know, take an hour out of your day, give her a ride to where she needs to go, and give her a ride back. See, while prayer may be completely useless, the type of selfish prayers that we tend to get out of Christians like Tim Tebow of the Denver Broncos, that selfish yet gluttonous Christianity, the type that is just for show. That's the kind that's the most useful for me personally right now. And that's the most useful kind for Miss Amanda and my personal guesstimation of the situation. But what do I know? I'm not Jesus, I'm just a Sean. My Cash App, it's cash.app/. $, Dogged Roman. The name on it is Sean Schwartz. My name is Sean David Schwartz. I was born October 18th, 1980 in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. The school I went to in Washington State, or the last school I went to in Washington State, I should say, the demographics of that particular school. This is when I was 15. This school, and it was right before I was shipped to China. I gotta get down. I'm exhausted from standing up and all this goddamn walking. Lincoln High School, Tacoma, Washington. Demographics.
According to usnews.com, overview of Lincoln High School, the total minority enrollment is 84%. And 55% of students are economically disadvantaged. Lincoln High School is one of 16 high schools in the Tacoma School District.
Yeah, so I guess 16% of the people that go to school there are white. So I guess I'm kind of not a minority there. Sort of. Then I got stuck in Chapel, Nebraska. Whole bunch of white people that blame everything on blacks and Mexicans. Like I said, we're bringing it full circle. I remember going to Pride Fest in Colorado, Denver, to support my LGBT friends. Despite the fact they didn't consider me LGBT, and my straight friends don't consider me straight. I went there in full support. And almost every time that I went, it ended up being LGBT friends of mine making fun of me for being a breeder, making fun of me for being a hetero, making fun of me over and over. Telling me I'm the oppressor even from time to time, sort of in a joking manner and sort of in a, hey, you see, we have a celebration just for us, and we invited you here to be friends with us, but now we're going to gloat and be bullies because we can. People like me fought hard for the rights of victims. So that victims could be heard when they're harmed. But then, now I'm told by black people that I need to go to the back of the bus when I'm victimized. I'm told by women that I need to go to the back of the bus when I'm victimized. We fought it to the point that if a black person is just offended, I might go to jail. If a female is just offended, I might go to prison. Then there's these black power groups, right? Brown pride groups, and I can totally support those. I can get behind that idea. But if that group is like BLM, I can't stand behind it because it is a racist hate group. And at this point, it has become a terrorist organization. Same as the KKK. When you want to blame all white people for the sins of people long dead, when you want to say that there are long-lasting repercussions of things like that, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's long-lasting repercussions for all of us. Pebble falls in the lake. The ripple goes across the lake. When you want to go making false accusations because you didn't get what you wanted right when you wanted it, what do we call that? When it comes to this gender game, who do we accept that out of? Well, each of us blames the other gender, don't we? Males blame females, females blame males. I blame the fact that people tend to listen more when it's somebody they find physically attractive. They're more likely to believe somebody who's physically attractive, and most likely to believe somebody with straight teeth and a straight smile. You'd be surprised. The more attractive somebody is physically, the more likely you are to go along with what they say. That's not always true, but mostly yes. When we made it in the late 80s and early 90s, we made it go from all of these oppressed groups being oppressed to, hey, we're actually getting some equality in the classroom. We're getting some equality, actual equality. Then the internet come about and told us all who to hate. And reminds us every day of who to hate. And if that's not enough, well, the news will remind us of what the internet says about who we're supposed to hate. And the common consensus is we're supposed to hate homeless people, aren't we? Especially homeless men. We're supposed to be afraid of the mentally ill. Meanwhile, most of the mentally ill are diagnosed with depression. And that depression is most generally diagnosed after a life-changing traumatic incident. How many women are diagnosed with depression after losing a child, after having a miscarriage? How about the magic trick used to harm all victims of horrendous crimes? The do you want to harm yourself or others? You're going in good faith to the people that you're supposed to go to, who are supposed to keep you safe. You're supposed to tell them when you're abused, and you go to them when you're abused. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Well, what do you do when you're blown off? When you're told to go elsewhere? When you're told it's somebody else's job? When you're assaulted and you're told to go to mental health? It's scary, isn't it? How about when you try to tell on your predator? States is mothers for beating on them, or telling on their fathers for actually assaulting them. When you see those cuts on your daughter's arms, it's already too late. When she's scratching herself with a lady Bic, that's when you need to intervene, and not intervene in a way where you're trying to have her locked up for being suicidal. Because then she gets the bad mentally ill tag, and for the rest of her life, anybody can beat on her, anybody can rape her, anyone can molest her, anybody can steal from her, anyone can harm her, and there's nothing that she can do about it because she has that label of mentally ill hanging over her head. Now, why does she have that label? Well, it's a two-part system, of course. It's not that your dad touched you wrong that's the problem. That can be cured. But how do you cure people not listening? It's not being molested by your dad that results in you cutting on yourself. It's when you go to your mother for help, or your sister, or your trusted adult, your trusted friend or family member. When they blow you off, they don't have time, they're too busy, they don't take seriously. And you want it to stop. You need it to stop. When they don't hear you and you cut on yourself, and they have you locked up on suicide watch. They're taking away your voice. Now, if you want your life to end in that situation, that's actually a natural reaction. When people are threatening to kill your friends and family, wanting to harm them back is a natural reaction. These are also natural reactions that are used to harm the victim. You can't be honest, or they'll peg you as the predator. You find out somebody raped your daughter, of course you want to beat the hell out of them. That's if you're trying to be nice. Someone calling themselves slow dive type. Peace be with you. Well, peace is not. Sometimes you gotta take an ass whooping on principle. I learned that at a pretty young age. I was about 13 when I was too mean and too big for people to rape or molest me anymore. But when I was 12, that's about the time I stopped beating on the other kids I was locked up with. It seemed to me, as a small white kid, every black kid come into an institution that I was in, or a foster home or a group home, they go in there thinking it's a prison mentality and they're going to go beat up the biggest guy or at least start a fight with him. That way people think he's crazy and nobody will mess with him. And he gets there and the biggest guy is way too big. Looks around, finds somebody about his size and goes, well, I might lose that one. And he sees a little white boy in the corner reading a book. Yeah, that's the guy he's going to fuck with like a dumbass. So a lot of times, yeah, I'd defend myself. I remember I was about 12 years old in one of them young and child study and treatment center in Washington State. They took away his black card. If you don't know what that is, they ain't gonna let you sit with the black kids. You don't get to eat dinner with the black kids. You don't get to eat lunch with the black kids. You don't get to sit at the black kids' table. You ain't black no more because you got your ass whooped by a white boy. I remember hearing, you best not be letting that white boy punk you. You best not be letting that white boy punk you. Oh, I punked him for sure, and he wanted his life to end for goddamn sure. And after that, well, fuck it. I put up just enough of a fight where it looked like he won legit. I'd let anybody win the fight if they were black. That way they wouldn't get their black card taken away. I'm not this monster I'm painted out to be. But I'm fucked with enough that I literally have to scream at the top of my lungs for help. I'm stuck out in public where traffic fucks with my ability to communicate. And if I raise my voice because there's a big goddamn truck going by like there is right now, then of course motherfuckers. Same one as earlier. But I can't raise my voice when that happens, or I get accused of yelling at people. How dare I? Then I get tone bullied. It sucks being nice to people, because then they think they can walk all over you. Wait, they can. Especially if you're a male. Especially if you're homeless. Especially if you're disabled. Because then you're easy prey. You're also a lot more vulnerable because you're more likely to be alone. And you're part of a social caste and a social group that garners nearly nothing but hate from the American community. The assumption that you must be a druggie because you're homeless, despite that all of these drugs on the streets are coming from people in houses. You see us alone. You had a bad day. You want a victim who's alone, who doesn't have the money for a lawyer, and you know the police aren't going to give a shit about. So you decide you're going to go fuck with a homeless schizophrenic like Zach Boatman. You know that if anybody does call the cops, that schizophrenic homeless man is going to get locked up, not you. You also know that any man out there who's homeless, you're just going to call him mentally ill as an excuse. And many of our predators, you can tell that they've been through that in their own families, the way they throw that out there, the way they know how to be mean with those words. How they couldn't possibly be the predator because you are mentally ill. You know that their parents threw that stuff at them. You know their siblings threw that stuff at them. A lot of people I know with abusive spouses, when they got depressed because they lost a child, they got an abusive spouse who's just going to dig on that. Dig in on it. Just the meanest things they can possibly say. And then at the end of the day, it's your fault for being depressed. If you weren't so depressed, well, then everybody else would be happy if you could just get over the loss like everybody else does so easily. Anyway, I'm going to end this video. If y'all can find a way to kick something down, that rocks. If you can't, well, so goes life. But the one thing I need more than anything else is for you guys to look at the evidence, look at the videos, share them, let people know what's going on. I don't curse unless people aren't listening. I don't break the law unless life is at stake.